Hi, my name is Jenny Lauren Dowden for Conduit News, and today we have Senator Steve Crowell joining us. He is from District 3, representing the Magnolia area down in South Arkansas. Hi, Senator. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Jenny Lauren. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you joining us on Conduit. This, of course, is the very first time you've joined us for an interview. I know our viewers will really appreciate hearing your thoughts on the legislative session and just general, just your perspective on how politics in Arkansas is playing out. So thank you so much. I first want to just talk about this is now your second session, your second regular legislative session here in Arkansas. Tell us first just how you believe the second session compares to the first time that you were there in 2023.
Well, I think the this session was very unique. I mean, the first session, let's just be honest, you're trying to keep your nose above water and trying to figure out where the bathrooms are. It is a lot. And but I think this session, knowing a little more, there was a little bit more I did, but it was a strange session. It was talking to people that have been there and just my feeling it was a high stress session,
Mm.
and it was really weird how things happened and didn't happen, and it was a very stressful long session, but it was long.
Yeah, I've heard that perspective and that description from several people now that it was weird, it was stressful, it was a lot, perhaps one of the most difficult sessions experienced. What was it, just in your opinion, that made it feel a bit disjointed or unusual?
I really just think there were so many bills that were probably good bills that weren't completely written correctly and got thrown back to the heap or thrown out. And there was bills that just came at you that you really had to study to what the adverse effects could be. So I mean that, and just a lot of people were with moving parts.
Yeah, I could see that. One thing that's really interesting, and I spoke with Senator Hill about this, something that you all do on the Senate side towards the very end of session that the House now has not done, is the House will, for now, they voted not to suspend the rules at the very end, which allows them to still have that time to work through committee, allow a bill, that 24-hour window. Historically, people have argued that's when a lot of these controversial pieces of legislation will get kind of snuck in and passed. But the Senate continues to suspend the rules, and Senator Hill argued, I don't know if this should happen. We don't even really have time to read a lot of this legislation. Did you did you feel that? Do you think that maybe that procedure needs to be looked at as you guys move forward? What are your thoughts?
I voted for it because I thought it was good. Last time I thought it worked out well. And again, I'm probably getting more in the Senator Hill camp. There is a lot that can happen that is bad if we do
Yeah.
that. There's two sides to every coin. This time, a couple of my big bills got through because the rules were suspended, that were good bills. Um, but then there was probably a couple that got through that shouldn't have. I think we do have to look at it, and I think there's a lot of times we just file, I mean, way too many bills. I mean, we have 22,000 some laws in the state, and it's quite frankly because people can't listen to the first 10.
Yeah. Yeah, it reminds me of, I believe it was Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch wrote the book about how we're just as a society completely overregulated. And if we had any idea how many laws are really on the books right now, we would be overwhelmed with probably how many laws we're breaking on a daily basis that we have no idea about. Um, Talk to us then about, just from your perspective, just some big wins, and let's maybe break down legislative wins as a whole, as a body, what you thought that you guys accomplished that were big legislative wins, and then I also want to hear from your perspective, just personally, pieces of legislation that you were really happy to see get through.
Well, I think there's kind of a couple that cross over. I think big legislation for the legislation as whole. I think there was the energy bill that did happen. And I think that was good in the long run, with some growing pains. I believe that, we did nitrogen gas for death row inmates. And I think one of the biggest things that was brought is if you molest or rape a 13-year-old or older, that you're now eligible for the death penalty. And quite frankly, that one to me is one that I really felt really strong about, because you're not going to rehabilitate those people. On a personal level, I had the lithium bill. We have lithium in South Arkansas, and it's moving along. And the lithium incentive package was really, really valuable for us. I also helped run the homestead credit. And so we're up to $600. And I think that's a really, really good thing for the taxpayers. And I think there's an opportunity to do more on that in the future. And I thought we did pretty good holding down some of the spending that could have happened. A lot of things that cost money didn't get through. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing.
We don't either. In fact, we think that y'all probably could have voted down a lot of bills still that had increased spending attached. But I appreciate that sentiment. Let's go back to two bills that you mentioned. Senate Bill 307, that was the energy bill. I believe it was dubbed something along the lines of the the Generating Arkansas Jobs Act. That went through the Senate twice. I know the first time that it went through the Senate for a vote, it was, narrowly failed. You were a no vote that first time. The second time it passed. Um, it seems like so long ago. That was kind of early on in session, and we were talking off camera. That seems like years ago, because session did feel long. But walk us through that bill. Why were you initially a no vote, and what were you hearing, if anything, from your constituents?
Well, the reason I was a no vote to start with is this bill really early in February before it was even presented, looking at it, and there was lots of errors. Energy is a monopoly in Arkansas. That's just what we have. So there's lots of issues with energy, from transmission lines to everything, that have not been kept up. And I was a no because it was going to put an undue burden, the way it was first written, on the taxpayer without any oversight. So the second time it came around, we've got a little more oversight. It's not perfect, but there's a lot more oversight, and it's going to make sure that they're at least checked in what they do, because ultimately, us, the ratepayers, are going to be the people who pay the bill.
I remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's starting to come back to me now. Senator Hickey requested something from the PSC regarding that oversight and their opinion. And I think that maybe helped move some people over to the yes column for that second vote. Is that correct?
That's correct. I mean, I believe they have just a slight bit more oversight and some more ways to stop things
Yeah.
being done bad.
Okay. Are you concerned at all though that there will still be a lack of oversight, and that once things become, get into production, we will see an increase on ratepayers?
Well, I believe you're going to see an increase on ratepayers anyway. That's just kind of the nature of that beast. But our goal in doing this, and I think that's what moved me over, is, right now, if they build a energy plant, at the very end, they turn it into the PSC. PSC says, okay, this is all your expenses. Now you can raise the ratepayers. Well, that's interest. That's everything else that we as ratepayers have to do. This kind of moves that schedule up to right away, so they can start raising the rates right away. And hopefully that levels off the way they raise, because quite frankly, in 3 to 7 years, I believe nuclear energy is going to be something that's coming, and that's not cheap. And as a ratepayer, I don't want to pay all that money on interest at the end of building a nuclear plant.
Something else, 307 and Senate Bill 568, while there weren't, big pieces of legislation, such as, in 2023 when you guys had LEARNS and the Protect Arkansas, there were some interesting pieces of legislation that really Arkansas hasn't tackled before in such a way, where we're seeing, energy unleashed, or, handling things like, looking at energy and having to, reshape that. But the lithium bill, this is also something that's really new here in Arkansas as well, and how we're going to handle that. with Senate Bill 568 and the lithium market, specifically down where you are. You were the lead sponsor of that bill, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. The lithium
Okay.
tax incentive bill. Yep.
Yeah, so talk to us about that bill and the economic impact of that bill here for Arkansas and even specifically your region.
Well, I mean, it was a bill. We have the infrastructure through the Oil and Gas Commission to do all this. And that's one of the advantages we have. Lithium goes all the way to Florida, all the way through Texas. So Texas and Louisiana has the ability to get these plants. And we're only 19 miles from Louisiana. So this was part of putting a package together that incentivized those companies to stay here, build their plants, and have those plants for the next 100 years. And what it also did is it incentivizes them, instead of making the product and shipping it to Houston or New Orleans or wherever to process it, to build those plants within the limits of the Arkansas. So you can have a battery recycling plant, a battery factory, a storage factory. Heck, these people use water pumps and go through millions of gallons of water a minute, and they may have 30 to 40 pumps being rebuilt at a time. Right now, they go to West Texas. So why not give a company an opportunity to have those tax incentives and build it within the the borders of Arkansas and keep that money here? And that's what the whole premise was. And I had so much help from everybody doing that up in Little Rock. We really worked a lot to get that done right.
Are, are you, whenever you talk about tax incentives and that sort of thing, do you ever have the concern that Arkansas, um, that we dabble too much in carve outs
I
for
I think that's always a concern, and I think that's a thing you have to weigh. You have to go, are we doing too much to get these businesses here? Are we, not going to make enough money? And that's where we looked at this a lot. And we're talking about jobs, people living here, paying the diesel tax, paying, all that personal income tax if we have it, but all that stuff. And in the long run, on the blip of a radar, this is 100-year process, and we're only doing about 7 years of incentives.
you mentioned personal income tax. Speaker Representative Evans did an interview with, I believe it was Roby Brock not too long ago,
Mm-hmm.
and he was asked about that. We have heard for quite some time now that that was going to be eliminated, and well, not this session, but soon, right? That's kind of what it always is. Not this session, but we'll do it soon. Okay, well, not this session, but we'll do it in the fiscal, or maybe actually there's going to be a special in the fall. Okay, not in the special. Maybe we'll tackle it then. What is your opinion? When do you see that being completely eliminated here in Arkansas?
Well, I think it's a process, and where I give, Representative Jean and Senator Disming credit is they're looking at this pretty hard, and they don't want to get to the point where they eliminate it, and then all of a sudden we have to come back and eliminate programs or stuff like that. So I think it's a slow process. It looks like our forecast is going to come in pretty good, so I believe that, next spring we probably are going to be looking at one. And I think it's right to look at one. I would love to get there, but I think one thing we don't do as well as we could in Arkansas is we're the second best state to live in financially, from top to bottom, through property taxes, sales or income taxes, everything. And we don't tote our own horn about that enough. So I believe it's going to happen eventually, but I don't want to make a mistake. And I don't think anybody wants to make a mistake where we have to cut programs that are essential. And that's where I think the governor's done a good job of, she's made some internal cuts throughout the government, and I think she's willing to do more and cut any fat that has to happen.
Okay, well, that's great to hear. Um, Another bill that you that I feel like it really took all of the attention, if not all of it, a lot of it, there in the Senate was, of course, the prison bill. The proposed prison in Franklin County, that was Senate Bill 307. That was voted on, gosh, was that 5 times? Was that
Five
five times
times,
in the
yes, ma'am.
Senate?
Yep.
Yes. Um, let's see. I was looking at your voting record. The first vote, you were a non-vote. The second and third, you were a yes vote. Um,
I was a no vote.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I was looking at 307. 354. You were the first vote, you were present, and the next four, I apologize, the next four you were a no vote. Um, a lot of opinions on the prison and very strong opinions, I guess you could say. But you really stood firm on where you were with the prison and talk to us about that. Was that difficult? Was it hard to take that stance? Because I know that it was unpopular there in the Senate, and then you all received a lot of pressure. Talk to us about that.
Well, I think it was, uncomfortable in the halls of the Capitol, but, every week when I went home, every phone call I got from home, my constituents, they were 100% behind me. I had people that were calling me on behalf of it saying, oh, by the way, I'm calling you. You're supposed to vote yes, but I don't really believe it. I think that's interesting when you have people that do that. I am the steward of the taxpayers' money. And to hand over a check for $825 million when the questions were, where's the water coming from? Is it 1,000? Is it 2,000? Is it 3,000? Is it 1,500? That was unable to be asked. And I knew there was a method to get there because right now they have 75 million. And look, I saw today they they put in 57 point whatever million to get the plans. And that's what I wanted. Let's get the plans. Let's
Mhm.
get the plans going. We have 330 million we put away last session for this. So right
Yeah.
now they have a little over 400 million that they can spend until next spring. And I think the process worked, and it's not going to slow anything down. I think it's actually going to make us do a better job. So I think that's the what had to happen.
That's interesting that you said that you were receiving phone calls. I'm supposed to tell you to vote yes, but really, I don't believe that. Where was the most opposition you received from on 354?
I think just within the chamber. I mean, there was lots of opinions and lots of people that wanted it. And let's be clear, I'm not against it. I
Yeah,
just think that the way we need to spend money is done differently.
I understand. I think that two lines of thought were being conflated at times, that if you were voting against a prison, that meant that you did not want to lock up the criminals. And I think that what you're saying and what I've heard others say is that not that's you're completely misunderstanding. And if anything, that's a bit manipulative of an argument. But I think it's responsible to take a look at the finances specifically because Arkansas, our budget is not that large, and this is a big chunk of money. Do you feel comfortable now with the progress that is being made on the prison?
Um, I'm got to see a little bit more, but I mean, already just from reading the papers and seeing a few things in person, I'm feeling much more comfortable. I really am.
Okay. There was another bill that it was also towards the end, and I don't know if it really got a ton of attention, but it certainly um, people were very passionate about it, and that was the 4-day school week. And it developed kind of over a weekend when the Department of Ed sent a letter to public schools, specifically those with a 4-day school week, um, and basically. And correct me if I'm wrong, because it's been a little while, but basically, if they didn't comply with certain things, they would need to change their schedule and go back to that 5-day. And there were a lot of schools that were thriving with this 4-day school week, and it would completely change their schedule. Their community had, this is something that was not done lightly in these school districts. It had been, voted on by the board and considered there in the community. Even some communities, had their constituents vote on it. And so, a lot of school districts were concerned that this was going to be taken away from them. You filed a bill in response to this, as did several others. And I believe actually, now that I'm thinking about it, Representative Matt Brown filed a bill, right, to repeal the 4-day school week.
I believe so. Yes. Yep.
Yes. Okay. And then that letter was sent out also from Education Secretary Jacob Oliva. Um, do you have, for just a few questions, do you have a 4 day
Actually, I
school?
want to correct that. I believe it
Okay.
was Representative Andrews. Now that I think about
Andrews,
it.
you're right.
Yes.
Thank you so much. You're right. It was not. I'm sorry, Representative Brown, for dragging you in this. It was Andrews. Um, do you have a 4 day school week, school district in your area? Why was this important to you? Was it so much about the week? Was it about local control? Why did you care about this so
I mean,
much?
I really think it's actually three pronged. Number one,
Okay.
it is local control. I mean, I think it's interesting because sometimes we want local control until we don't want local control. And I'm a example of having hypocrisy sometimes because I vote for something that I think is right, and then I look at it and I'm like, oh, it's kind of taking over local control. But I think that's one big thing. The other thing is I do have schools. I've got schools that are A schools that are 4 days a week, and talking to the superintendents and them explaining to me what were the benefits of it, and it just overall, I think it's something we don't have enough data on. We've only done it for 2 years, so where's our data points? And what do we do now? Do I think there's a compromise where if you're a D or an F school, you probably can't do it? Yeah, I think that's probably a possibility, but I just don't think we need to throw the bath out with the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah.
It's just you've got to think through things, and sometimes we do knee jerk reactions. And I felt that this was a knee jerk reaction. And there was a group in the House that I talked to, and a bunch of senators, and I felt very confident that we were going to get this through. It failed in education the first time. I was bringing it back with those special with the suspension of the rules. I was going to bring it back, but then I think we come to an agreement that we're going to wait till next session and kind of get more data.
Yeah. Um, where on this bill, where do you think the opposition came from the most? Why do you think there was even who was asking for this? Who wanted to take away that local control and take away that 4 day option for these schools?
I don't really know exactly who wanted to do it, but I mean, I think the bottom line is there's 178 days that most schools have to go. When you do a 4 day week, you go 143. Now, do I see a problem with that? Yeah, probably. There needs to be a middle ground. But I think that was honestly the number one argument that I heard is, well, 143, that's just not fair. I don't necessarily disagree with it, but I don't agree that why can't 155 or 156 or we'll figure it out. It's the same instructional hours, but what that's something I think we have to study and look at. We can't just say, well, that's the only thing I don't like, so I'm going to throw it out.
Yeah, that's a good perspective. The Arkansas Democrat Gazette recently had an article come out from Mike Wickline. He's a reporter there at the Capitol, and essentially it said that the lobbying expenses were the highest that they've been in 18 years. They reached over 1.6 million, and a lot of people were surprised by that. I think a big chunk of that went to the anti-PBM legislation, and of course one would argue, well, you could see that, all of this money went to defeat that bill, and actually the bill still passed. And so, how effective was it? What would you say to that? Do you believe that there is an immense amount of pressure from lobbyists and special interest groups at the Capitol? Can you think of maybe a time when they were really influential in maybe killing a bill or getting a bill passed? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I think the lobbyists are very active. I think it's also one of those where I think there was also the fluoride bill that they probably spent quite a bit of money on. There's subject matter that they spend money on. But yeah, I mean, there was the big tort reform bills. There was like four or five of them. I know they probably spent money on that. The big bills because they're in the Capitol wanting to talk to you and stuff like that. But I look at the lobbyists as a totally different thing. Mine is information gathering. It's I want to hear your side. And then I always ask them, so what's the other side going to say?
Hmm.
And when you do that to both sides, and sometimes there's three sides, and you get a lot of information, and then you can go and in your office, look at the bill, look over things again and go, okay, that's probably not right there. And there's the truth, and then there's the middle, which is usually, everybody's side, and then the middle is usually where the truth is.
What did not pass that you would like to see come back or that you want to work on again?
Fluoride. I mean, I think fluoride is I think it's a big thing, and I don't understand. I have not been here when they fought all those battles in the past, but I don't understand the putting your foot in the ground when there's data showing how dangerous it is. And I mean, I went to a water company with a whole group of people. Some lobbyists were there representing fluoride, and the question was asked, "Do we need fluoride?" And unfortunately for the lobbyists who were representing fluoride, the two water guys said no, absolutely not, and they gave their reasons why. Talked about the suits they had to wear. They spill it on their shoes. It burns through their. That just kind of
Wow.
makes you go, wow. So I mean, that's one. I think there's a lot of bills that were probably left on the floor, the cutting room floor, that were good. Like I said, I've got an interim study with property tax, the property tax trust fund.
Mhm.
Is there a level where you're making so much money and you own your property and at such age that we can get rid of your property tax? I don't know. I mean, that's all those things you just have to look into. But I think I would like to see less bills filed. I would like to see more. If there's going to be that many bills, let's do the fix it bills and fix the laws. But sometimes I think we just do stuff to do stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't pat yourself on the back because you file the most bills. That's not necessarily a good thing. I don't think Arkansans want more laws. Y'all are moving into ALC week. This is when you all meet at the Capitol for various committees. Walk us through that. What committees are you on? What does that look like? Kind of explain for our viewers very briefly before you go why this particular season is important as far as the rules process that follow once the bills become law.
Well, when a bill is passed, there is always holes in it, so they have to make rules on how the money's distributed, how the this rule affects the grant or whatever. So I mean, you have peer is on Tuesday, and that is, I feel, one of the most important because it tells you where the money's coming from. If it's a GR, they're requesting money, and that is, I think some of the most important times for us are in the off season where we say no to something. We said no last month to $2.9 million to help state employees along the way to get their college tuition forgiven. So if you're a state employee right now, a governmental employee, you've worked for 10 years, you can get your tuition, all your loans that you had forgiven. Well, we were going to spend $2.9 million of taxpayers' money to help employees do this the right way. Well, I am so proud that they said no. I mean, and we had enough people to say no. That's something we don't have to do, but there's all kinds of those that we have to do. So it's going over contracts, making sure contracts were bid correctly, making sure it is not fun for people to be in that room sometimes. And I'm sure you've been there when the big ones happen and you're going, ooh, ooh.
Yeah, there are some legislators that I appreciate that are on those committees or co-chairs, and they're like, "Well, we'll give you funding for this year, but what about year two and year three?" And they follow up and they look at the big picture of funding, and I've had a few legislators I'll message or text, and I had one last week say, "You need to find a hobby because I watch them online when I'm not down there." And that's probably true. But you're right, they are really important to watch. It is how state government spends our money. And, I view it as it's just as important, if not more important. I don't know if that's actually, but It's that fine tooth comb of where they're going through grants and like you said, government spending, and a lot can happen there. There was what year? I don't know what year it was. A $78 million contract given to CJRW for advertising. And I'm sure that there is a wonderful reason why they need to have 78, close to $80 million for advertising. But that's a lot of money. And, those things are brought up during this time. So I encourage everyone to tune in and watch.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Anything else that you want to mention before we let you go?
I mean, I appreciate you having me on the program, and I appreciate you and I texted this year, and it was great because there was times we
Yeah.
disagreed on bill, there was times we worked together on stuff, or you got stuff to me, and I appreciate that, and that's what I think the constituents need to know is most. I'm not speaking for everybody, but I can speak for myself. I'm available, and I think that's important for us to have input from you because we're expected to be an expert on 90,000 things. And
Mhm.
unless you're expert on it, call us, let us know. Oh, I will tell you the funniest thing that happened to me this session. So I ran that anti-squat bill for the trucks that go like this, and we passed it. And so if your bumper is 4 inches in the front above the back, it's the most hate mail I've ever gotten as a senator. People are a
Really?
little passionate about their vehicles,
That is
but
so interesting. Like, give us an example. What did they
just
say?
I mean, I
They
had one
said,
gentleman that said, "You shook my hand for your to get my vote, and I will never vote for you again on that bill." And it's like I said, told him, "I'm sorry, apologize, but it's a safety thing. People have been killed. It's not how it looks. It's just unsafe."
yeah,
And
that's so interesting.
yep, I
Well,
just think
before I let
that's
you
funny.
go, yeah, primary season, have you announced your reelection? What are your plans for?
I I don't have to run for I guess 3 more years.
Okay, so you
So
have a 4 year. Okay,
yep, I have a four. So
that's
I'm just
nice.
going to help. I'm going to help get
That's
good
great.
candidates in that we can. I know we've got some actually down here. We've got some outgoing candidates that were are outgoing legislators. I mean, we got Matthew Shepard right next to me. We got Lane
That's
Jean in
that's
my
right.
district. So we've got to get the right people in and keep this conservative and continue the path of good conservative.
Are y'all finding some candidates down there?
I think we've got. I mean, there was a gentleman that announced in Shepard's spot, and I think we've got one. Hopefully, going to announce in the next couple weeks in Mr.
Okay.
Gene's spot.
All right. Well, we'll keep an eye on that. It's always an interesting time. It's early on right now, and everybody's kind of on summer plans or whatever as people are announcing, but it'll certainly heat up and get really interesting. So we'll be
Yep,
watching. And you'll get to watch kind of from from the back seat since you don't have to run this campaign season.
absolutely.
That's nice. Well, hey, thank you so much, Senator, and hope to have you back on again soon.
All right. Thank you very much. Have a good one.